So we're in the middle of this second section on page Samar Gimel. The line begins with the word bemadregah Ayin. So we ask a question. Being that we've concluded in explaining previous Maimer how neshamas are superior to malachim, and from the fact of their source, that neshamas are rooted in the pnimis and etzem, and the birth of the neshamas comes through what's called a zivug gufni, zivug zum, which means, as we explained, gufni means it represents the very mitzias, the very presence itself. Malachim, the zivug nishikin. What's called nishikin? It's like a kiss. It's like a ruch nizika kind of a relationship. So even though this is on a high madregah, this is above chochmah and bina, whereas zum is in the lower midos. But nevertheless, in the zum there is the etzem, whereas in avod there is only a har, and that's why the neshamas exclusively are capable of being mamshich atzmos. And then we have the question in this moment. If that's the case, why are the neshamas requesting and longing for the nishikin? They have something much more profound, much more real than the nishikin. So we started explaining this in that. Being that this is that nishikin, this is a higher zivug. This is even though it's a ha'ara, but it's a ha'ara of a much higher inyan. That which above, which chochmah and bina are the major participants. That the zivug, the oil that comes through there, even though it's only ha'ara, that ha'ara is superior than the mahus of madregah tachton, than the actual mahus and the actual presence, mitzius, that comes through in yichud zum. And yesterday we explained the preliminary principles in this inyan. Hope that we reviewed it and we remember that the principles what chochmah and bina represent is not only that which chochmah and bina directly relate to, but it actually relate to the source of that. This is what sense in the chochmah and bina, and that is superior to the mahus of the bemadregah tachton. Okay. So now we continue at the end of this line, the line that begins with bemadregah Ayin. According to ha'ara from a high madregah, ha'ara, hopefully we understand. Whatever, it needs a bit of reflection. The principle of ha'ara is that it has the effect of the inyan. It's a reflection. and the order is actually reflective of the higher madrega itself. All right. Maybe sometimes we'll elaborate more on this. We already discussed it over the years. Nagam de bechinas yichud pnimi de zun. Although that this union that we explained, that the neshamis come from yichud pnimi de zun. So we said now that yichud avo, even though it's a ha'ora, and it's not the pnimi, but nevertheless, in this ha'ora is superior to the yichud pnimi de zun. So now we continue to elaborate on this. Although that we explained that the yichud pnimi of zun, ein ze bechinas ha'pnimi is the zun levad. This does not contain only limited to the pnimis of zun levad only, alone. It is not only the zun that is being represented in this yichud, kim, but rather shenishba bozeh, that in this yichud, this nishba is also come through bechinas hapnimius v'ho'atzmus dein soif. The aspect of pnimis and atzmus dein soif itself. Ukmeishin is boy liyid. This principle that the higher madrega is actually brought forth, represented in the yichud on the lower madrega, this was discussed many times before. To give us a very simple, hands-on, so to speak, illustration of the principle. So we explained, among other instances, something very, very tangible on a very lower level. As we said, a home is odom shein lebayis ein odom. The bayis, this is something which is ein odom. This is representative of the essence of the human being. Without that, he's not an odom. What this Imam is talking about, the essence of the person. Then, in the bayis, you have all kinds of amenities, all kinds of servicing elements. These servicing elements, this is like the zoom. This is like the practical practical aspect that you do in a house. So you would think the home, it really touches the essence of the person, whereas all the amenities, these are on a lower level. These are on a practical level. So we explained, however, and we have to recognize that all the amenities, like a table in a home, has a different significance than a table in the street. Even though if you encounter a table in the street and you have something in your hand, or a cup of water in your hand, you want to put it down, you can put it down on that table. But that's only the functional element of the table. The true significance, the true presence of the table, the effect of having a table is exclusively in the home, which means the home is expressed. The overall significance of the home is expressed not only in the fact that there is a home, but in all the amenities that are placed therein. The reason they are placed in the home is because the home is like the oyer elyon, is the surrounding oyer makif that allows for all of these things that calls for all of these things. So that in the particular, in a table, in a home, for example, there is not only a table, but there is also the sense that this is a home, which is a much higher element. This is what we're saying, that in Yichud Zun, it is not the Pnimis Zun Levad, but Pnimis Shemazar Bechin is a Pnimis for Asma de Inside. Excuse me, go ahead.
Amen.
So therefore, the Pnimis for Asma de Inside is also Nishpach, along with the Yichud Zun. So therefore, why are we saying that in Yichud Abba, that in Yichud Nishikin, because it's of a higher madregah, it's superior even than the Yichud Pnimi of Zun, because it's from a higher madregah. But in Yichud Pnimi in the Zun, there included the higher madregah also. Pnimi Tzvi Asma saying so. This principle, it's only discussed many times, as I discussed now, as in the illustration of the home, to put it, to express it on a higher and more spiritual level. We have Zun is Zomach, Zo is Midas Chesed Gvura Tiferes. So Chesed, for example, Chesed, kindness, it appears superficially that kindness is elicited by the circumstance. You see the person in distress, in need, and you see immediate effect of your action. You pick him up, you give him a morsel of food, or you speak to him nicely, you actually uplift him, and you see immediate response. So the chesed seems to relate to the person at this level exclusively. And it's kind of a response to the stress that you are observing. So what we're saying that this is not true in the real sense of the word. It's not true. The reason that there is this compassion for the person is that one recognizes in this person a higher and a greater reality, a greater truth, a greater goodness, a godly presence. And the reason that this discomfort and distress is so bothersome, because it's in contrast to the truth as it is. So therefore, the whole truth is recognized in this reaction. Because there is a chayus, and there's a purpose, a supreme godly purpose in this person, in this entity, in this presence. So therefore it is bothersome to see how this presence, which has such superior qualities, and it is in distress. Like we always point out, if you find a man lying in the gutter, and the man is in a very low state, he's lying in his own throw of Rahman Islam, and you try to help him, he refuses to be helped. He says, I'm happy where I am. And we are still bothered, and we say, we don't even believe when he says that, don't bother me. Why not? Because we see something greater than meets the eye. It comes through compassion, but the compassion itself is representative of a higher source. Okay, so therefore, in this Yichud Zum, there is also the primis for Atzmus. It's always important to understand the expression Pnimius and Atzmus, particularly Atzmus. Pnimius is still alluding to a very lofty and great insight, a great spirit. Atzmus is not something that we have a means of understanding of expressing. How is Atzmus expressed? The one thing that the Atzmus add in there is there is a fundamental real truth in this. It doesn't have to express itself. This is just the reality itself. If that reality is missing, no matter how beautiful and how phenomenally effective in the expressed it is and how much emotion there is, it has no significance. In this, Yichud Zun is Pnimis Atzmus, or Atzmus Leinsur. Like everything, we can go on. However, the explanation is that which would explain our original statement, that the ha'or of the higher madregah is superior to the mahus of the lower madregah. And this is the hinan is boiliyim. What we explained previously, the בהמשך אז הפנימיות יש גם כן חילוק מדרגות.
Sorry to interrupt. If you are short of one man for the minyan, you can come fetch me on the shore.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we explained that Amshachas HaPnimis is Gam Ken Chilukim Madregas. There are different madregas in what type of Amshachas HaPnimis it is. Hagam De'in and Amshachas HaPnimis Hu. Although that in principle the term Hamshachas HaPnimis is Shebechol Mokum Shenimshach, that whatever it is recognized, wherever it is brought, it comes in. Ho Bechinas HaPnimis Veho Atzmus Mamash. It is the true Pnimis and the true Atzmus. This is the meaning of Hamshachas HaPnimis. At whatever level it is identified, it is the real thing. So therefore, why are we saying that there are different madrigas? Yet still, yesh b'zeh chiluk, be'ez madrega hu. There is nevertheless a difference in what madrega this hamshacha is from. K'mei bechinas atik, As for example, speaking about Atik. Speaking about Atik, and here we'll take our time and explain what this is about. It's not novel to us, but it's a good review. Shezeho ha'atokas ho'atzmus. Atik means ha'atokas ho'atzmus, which means a copy of the atzmus. Like we explained, that ha'atik means shehamatik misefer v'sefer. That when one copies from one sefer to the other, and you copy from one sefer to the other, it turns out to be identical to the source. And this is what Atik is. It's a ha'ataka from Atzmus. And that is why in certain mode of speaking, when we refer to Atik, we refer to it as Atzmus. This is the Atzmus relative to Atzilus. The Atzmus that Atzilus recognizes. So this Atik, Hatokas hu Atzmus, arel. So there, k'mo shenase Atik la'Atzilus. When in that state, in that madregah, what Atik becomes Atik la'Atzilus, the Atik for Atzilus, which means it is not Atzilus the way it is unto itself, but the way it is the intermediary to bringing the Inyan Atzmus into Atzilus. So at that state, with Nasa Atik la'Atzilus, arel ze bibchinas, so then it is bibchinas, it has that quality of memutza ben ein sof hamatzil and hanerzol. It is a memutza between the ein sof hamatzil, between the matzil, the ultimate source, the ultimate atzmus, el hanerzolim, to that which becomes into a world, even though it's a world of atzilus, but it is there is a gilui, there is a mitzias of a presence there. So that becomes the intermediary between in some hamatzil and atzol. This is what Atik is. Again, we will revisit this. Or pnimis abba, who pnimis Atik mamash. And we always know this is a very common quote. Pnimis abba, pnimis Atik. Pnimis abba means the pnimis of chochmah. Who pnimis Atik mamash is the actual pnimis of Atik. Abba senses the pnimis of Atik, and that becomes the pnimis of Abba, of chochmah.
Abba, chochmah, in a sense, is what's above it. Pnimis of Abba.
Right. And yet still, k'may shehu bibchinas. Pnimis Abba, even though it is the very same, the Pnimis Abba and Pnimis Atik is one and the same, mamush. Still, k'mei shehu bibchinas Pnimis Abba, the way that this Atik, the Pnimis Atik, is in that level, in that cognizance of Abba, yicholim lahagia lozeh alidei mitzvos loisas. It's possible to reach to that madregah and to touch it, to affect it, through the Inyan for mitzvahs loisas. Okay, this is just a preliminary introduction to the Inyan. So, as I said, even though this is not novel for us, but in order for us to have a meaning in the following, we have to put it in perspective and be able to relate to these lofty terms. we'll step down a little bit. We talk about atik. Atik is like rotzin, and to relate to rotzin, chochmah and rotzin directly, we'll have to go through a stage. First, we want to. I'd like to discuss briefly the function of chochmah. Since that, practically speaking, ultimately, it is bina that creates and identifies and creates the midas, not chochmah. So what's the function of chochmah? To give us a very simple illustration of the point. You have to travel from point A to point B. And you say, oh, point A is southeast, point B is northeast or northwest. Is that going to get you there? Not going to get you there. Now you have to know all the different pathways how to go there. Then you start identifying what roadways are there, what obstacles, what kind of mountains you have to avoid, what kind of waterways. How are you going to get there? I know what I'm doing. That you don't know anything. And yet we say this is important. What's important about this view? It's of utmost importance. And anybody who has traveled knows that even in this very simple illustration, this knowledge of the point A and point B will keep you focused as you are going through all the various contours and all the various twists and turns. You will never lose focus. In the travel, sometimes you're going east, sometimes you're going west, sometimes you're going to go the opposite direction than you were intended to, in order to avoid certain obstacles. But you're still going in the same direction, you're still focusing the same thing. You're not lost. Without this view, you'll be lost. What does this view give you? This view gives you a perspective of how these 2 points are placed within the global reality. Not how they are in proximity to one another. It's important to understand this. Point B is to derive to the left of point A. That's not going to... The idea is it gives you a sense they're both points on this earth, and you have a sense of the reality that contains them. This is chochmah. This is pnimis abba, pnimis atik, pnimis abba. Pnimis is mamosh. Atik, this is the reality itself. Chochmah, pnimis abba, this is what it relates to, but on the chochmah level. And therefore it allows for bina to draw from this and to map out the whole route, so to speak. So the chochmah, or as we have in our example, this reality is brought down to our practical and our conscious mapping out level to keep track of this overall reality, which is of utmost importance. But we're going to be shown, what has been discussed is that even though pnimis abba is pnimis atik mamosh, there's a difference between the way the atik is in atik and the way this same atik is in chochmah. It's in pnimis abba. Okay, so gear us, and let's gear ourselves for this. Have a great day. Okay, this is it for this morning, and today is Thursday, the best that I know. So we're going to get together tonight in Mitzrayim. Yeah? I don't want to mention the time.
Kelola